I think we all need to look at our own lives, right? Like, I don't have the government kind of giving me these like siloed buckets of things that I'm meant to do. I just get money, right? So and you
mean through
my job,
tax benefits?
But also tax benefits.
Sure.
I mean, I bought a house 7 years ago. The government gave me $10,000. They didn't make me take financial training to get. I mean, it was about a tax refund.
Yeah.
They didn't make me take financial training. They didn't tell me I could only spend it on certain things. I could have gone out and bought $10,000 worth of shoes.
They didn't make you sit down with a caseworker to get the home mortgage interest deduction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a way in which we assume, right, that people who are already well off like know what they're doing.
Right.
So we don't even ask those questions, right? And again, like just embedded in the idea that we actually need to talk about like what would poor people do with money. Suggests that like we're not actually sure that they would do like the right thing, which assumes that we think that they're poor because they've made bad decisions, which is not true.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the framing of inequality and poverty in and of itself leads to these type of solutions. So I'm an economist, and I'd say that my discipline is very culpable in advancing structures of inequality with its rhetoric, that markets are somehow natural, that markets are inevitable, that markets always lead to efficiency. I mean, it leads to notions that basically those that work hard, those that try hard, those that are the best will be successful, and therefore those that are the laziest, the least astute, that they will either disappear over time or have to find something else to do. Such rhetoric ignores structure and the role of capital finance in the first place. Resources beget more resources. They also make a presumption that somehow market outcomes can't be altered by the fact that some people have power, agency, and resources to begin with. So I think if we had a better framing to understand inequality and poverty at the outset, then we wouldn't come up with solutions that basically presume that people's position is the result of some irresponsible behavior, some lack of knowledge, some deficiency amongst them. We should change our whole structure to think about, I always reference the Nobel laureate Amartya Sen in his human capabilities frame of, from a structural standpoint, how do we empower people so that they have agency and the resources to be self-determining and both defining their goals and achieving their goals? To me, that's what we need. We need a shift there. And, again, the notion of what can we do about it, we have ideas. We have good ideas that we can do to really bring about a better society.
Right. And I feel like that's a really important point that you both just made, to say we have the structures of inequality and poverty that we have in this country largely because we chose them and government policies built them, right? Like, that's uncomfortable. And I think that you're right that a lot of that has to do with the history of race. But I think that it puts it in an interesting framing. It's like, well, that means that we could choose different structures, right? It means that we could have different outcomes if we elected to.
Totally.
Right.
And I think, I think part of that is that we actually have to have the real conversations we need to have about race, which we have not had, which we avoid. And we'll talk about things that are kind of around race, but we don't dig into the deeply personal work that people actually need to do around race, because you can't legislate away racism, right? We can have laws against discrimination against race, but that doesn't mean those things don't show up in the unconscious bias that people carry when they're enacting those things.
Right.
So that's one thing. The other thing is that the people who experience inequality are the best positioned to let us know how to actually create solutions for them.
Right.
But too often those people are completely left out of the conversation.